This was my first time using watercolors and markers on a drawing together, and I had no idea what I was doing, especially with my shaky hands. It was definitely challenging, and I encountered a bit of hiccups, but I will say everything worked out in the end. So stay tuned to see the rest of the process and how this drawing turned out. Hello, hello. It's me, Lashe. Lashe creates. That's my name. My name's Lashe. I didn't tell you my name in the last video, but yeah, today we're doing watercolor and markers again. But we're doing watercolor and yeah, let's just get right into phase one. Let's start talking about the drawing. Let me introduce my art materials real quick. These are my new Ohuhu markers that I just bought that I showed you guys in the last video. Fine liner and brush tip markers. Yes, it's 60 colors. Yes, very good, very good. And these are my paint brushes. Some I just bought, some are from secondary school that I got in secondary school. I have cotton candy water cups. They were filled with cotton candy and I just turned them into paint cups anyway. My watercolor pad is Daler-Rowney. It's a watercolor pad. It's A5. So this is a pre-made drawing from 3 months ago. I did it last year, December. I just didn't have time to finish it. So I decided to record it this time. So no drawing, just the coloring process this time. At least the video will be a bit shorter than. Okay, so it's time to move on to phase two of the drawing. I'll be using watercolor as a base for anything with a large surface, like a large surface area. So the background, definitely the plates, any food on the plate that seems large enough to have watercolor as a base. I said in my last video that I have shaky hands. Yeah, so it was really affecting me now with the watercolors. Um, so I would paint and my hands would start shaking, and basically all the plates were no longer round, but it doesn't matter. I would use markers and fine liners to bring back the roundness. It doesn't need to be round. Maybe that's the style or something. But I didn't really care about that because I was going to cover it up with markers anyway. So, so while I'm painting, you will see I left a round area, completely white at the top of the big centerpiece bowl. Yeah. So I actually, it's not supposed to be there. It's supposed to be there in the picture, but I didn't draw it because while I was drawing it, there was no space to fit it in because I didn't scale the drawing right. So yeah, I couldn't see the drawing again. So I couldn't see it. So, but I later covered it up anyway because yeah, that was a mistake. So, so the background actually ends up being just a bit patchy because watercolor dries a bit streaky if you keep going over it too much. So yes, I tried not to go over the background too much so it won't be a bit streaky, but it still ended up being a bit patchy. And actually, the color that I chose it's probably goodness, it's probably the wrong color. So the color I chose for the background is actually the wrong color. It's a bit more orange brownish in the picture, but I chose something that's a bit more muddy and green. But it doesn't need to be the color exactly, Okay.
Okay.
It doesn't need to be the color exactly. Maybe it's a style or something.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know. Honestly, I just chose the wrong color by accident, but I tried not to go too dark on the watercolor for the bowls or for the food in the bowls so I could see what was underneath. Yeah, it looks like a mess because it's just some areas have color, some areas don't. But It will get better once the markers get on the page. So just keep that in mind. Yeah, just keep that in mind. So as I kept going, it was almost like I kept choosing the wrong color for almost everything. So I actually forgot that I can mix watercolors,
What?
but I was just using them straight from the tin. But since it's not the main medium, I didn't really bother with a palette because there was actually no space on my table for a palette. I had markers and swatches and all over the place. So and my laptop was there too. So there was no space. But maybe if I do a more detailed watercolor painting, I would actually mix colors. But I didn't bother with that. It's not the main medium. Yeah. So I just managed the colors that were in the tin and I just stuck with it. I just built with the colors straight from the tin. Yeah. Again, it may look like a mess and not identical. Again, it doesn't have to be identical. Yeah. It doesn't have to be identical. Okay. But markers will fix it. Yeah. So again, let's keep that in mind. Yeah. Okay. Also, when painting on a smaller surface, not a smaller surface, smaller piece of paper or a smaller drawing like this, smaller brushes definitely work better. I switched from a bigger brush to a thinner one over time because it was just easier and it's just better and easier to control where the paint goes with smaller brushes. Yeah. And while using the watercolors, I wasn't waiting. Sometimes I wouldn't wait for the paint to dry. So because I was all over the page, I would rest my hand on the paint by accident. So I did it this one time for this smaller area that I didn't even need to use purple watercolor for, but I did it. I put my hand on it by accident and then I spread it to an area that was meant to be plain white. So then I start using this. I start using tissue to try to get rid of the purple stain to lift the watercolor, but then the page started tearing. So it started ripping, not tearing or ripping, but just started coming off a bit. So I just decided to leave it alone. And you know what? At some point, it just wasn't about neatness anymore. I just kind of gave up in on making it neat because I was just like,
Wait for it.
since I'm going to use
Here it comes.
since I'm going to use
Almost there.
since I'm going to use markers later, I'll just try to cover up all the mistakes. It was just about getting the base down, getting it over with. Yeah, just getting the base down because there were lots of mistakes with the final watercolor base, but since it was going to be covered up with markers and fine liners, I just didn't bother anymore. Yeah, so this is the ugly stage for real, but it will get better. All right, and this is the final watercolor drawing. Yes, the final one.
The next day.
No,
No!
no, actually, it's not because the next day, when I finally decided to start with the markers, I realized that I should probably add shadows to the plate. So I got my watercolors again when I thought I was done. And then I decided to go over it with the same color just to make the areas under the plate or around the plates darker. I was using the picture as a reference. I'm not sure if it did much because it's the exact same color. I didn't want it to be too dark, so I used the exact same color. But yeah, now this is the final drawing. This is the final drawing. And we can move on to phase three, which is the markers and the fine liners. Yay! Finally. Okay, so we're moving on to the markers now for the first plate. Okay, this is where my shaky hands start coming in. In my first video, I said I don't know how to outline things without my hand shaking, but okay, maybe for this drawing, we can consider it as part of the style. Maybe it's abstract, non-round plates as abstract art or something. Okay. The next plate is another half plate at the top. It's just plain white or
What?
off white. Okay, so with the third plate, which is the first one that actually has food on it that is visible, it was easy to hide the fact that I wasn't very round because again my shaky hands almost got the best of me, but it didn't. So it was easy because the plate was darker. So I used fine liners. I went around the entire plate. I used markers to go over all the food on the plates again to add more depth to everything. And for the I don't know, is that lettuce or yeah? For that, I went over everything again with fine liners. When I was using the watercolors, right, it leaked, you might have seen it, it leaks into the lettuce. I tried to hide it with fine liners, yep. And also I tried to separate all the peas with fine liners and with markers and just make it look more like peas and individual peas on the plate. And I may have underestimated how long it would take for me to do each of these plates because I spent 30 minutes on peas. Yeah, that's when I realized that it's gonna take a while. Yeah. So the next plate is under the white one. This one was kind of fun to do because it has a blue rim and a design inside that blue rim. You can't really see it, but I'm going to use white gel pens at the end, so maybe you'll see it clearly. And so I tried to blend it. I used my new brush markers, yes, to blend it out, to blend out the colors on each of the squares. And with the brush markers, I'm not sure what exactly the problem is, but throughout this entire drawing, it almost seems like it's ripping the paper, it's tearing the paper. Maybe it's too wet or something, or maybe I maybe this pad that I'm using in particular isn't for markers because I'm not sure exactly what it's for, but it's definitely for watercolor, but maybe it's not for markers because the markers just kept ripping the paper. The next plate is another simple one. It's another blue plate. It's directly under the blue plate that we just finished. It's very simple because there's no food inside. So I already added the base of watercolor earlier. So I just went around the plate with markers. I used brush markers inside the plates as well. Okay, for the next sets of plates, these are the three small turquoise bowls under the centerpiece plate. I colored it with markers to give it a shape back because while I was doing the watercolors, when I used watercolors, it kind of lost its shape, so I colored it again. And for this entire drawing, I don't know, it just seems like I didn't have enough marker shades to do this. And I don't know, I just kept struggling with picking colors. Okay, for the next plate, it's gray, kind of. In the picture, it's actually kind of reflective, but I have no idea how to do that. So I just made it gray. So for this one, it's kind of like a salad. I think it's just a bunch of greens and you can guess this one kind of. It's a bunch of greens and strawberries. Now this one was actually my favorite because it ended up being so because it ended up being so bright. Maybe it's the strawberries, I don't know. But yeah, so I outlined the strawberries, and I'm not sure what this is. Maybe avocado, 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 avocado. Okay, yeah, that fruit. I used three shades of green for the salad underneath. Used my red fine liners for the strawberries, and this just ended up being my favorite plate. Yeah, it's just two colors, but it's just maybe just because of how bright it is. But yeah, okay. Moving on to the next plate or pot. That's what it looks like in the picture. I wasn't really sure this was going to turn out nicely because I was unsure of the shades and shape of this pot. But it actually turned out really good. And while I was highlighting the pot, I realized that I was using the wrong dark marker the entire time for every single one of these, because for all of these, I had this specific dark shade that seemed to be working for almost all the plates. It wasn't the wrong marker, it was actually the right marker. But in my head, it was the wrong shade I was thinking about. It's not important, but this was actually when I realized that. Also, as I said earlier, it felt like there were not enough shades while I was doing this. I think it's because I needed a lot of grays and browns because of the mushrooms, and most of the plates I was highlighting needed that brown and gray, and the fine liners didn't have enough grays. The grays that were in the new set I bought, they're a bit too gray. They're a bit too bluish gray. Like I wanted more brown gray, but I didn't have that. So I was stuck with the same marker for the entire drawing. But then the fine liner started to dry. Like I don't know if it was drying, but it just stopped working. So moving from the bottom of the drawing back to the top. So this plate that I'm doing now is another simple plate. I'm sure it looks like lettuce on this plate as well. I guess. I'm not sure what the brown circles are, but yeah. Yeah, this was a very simple, straightforward plate. It's a white plate, but since the rim is brown itself, I guess the rim isn't brown. Some of these I kind of ignored the rim on the real drawing to make it darker. This one and the green plate right above it, I kind of made the rim darker than what was actually in the picture. That's what happened here. But yeah, this plate was very simple. Okay, so the next one isn't a plate, but a basket, and it's directly under the blue plate with dots and yeah, with the letters and yeah, whatever. Anyway, this one is a basket. It was really interesting to do actually. I was adding detail to the basket, added lines and just a bunch of highlights and different browns and shades just to make it look more like a basket, you know. I guess the shading was also interesting because it's basically plain white. I'm going to guess these are dumplings. Yeah. I'm going to stop guessing. I'm not sure. Anyway, the shading was kind of off white. Not off white. Gosh, what does off white even look like? Okay. The shading was interesting. I just got a gray color pencil and a gray fine liner. Yeah, to shade it. Okay, so for the next one, which is directly under the basket, this one is not a plate either. It's kind of a like a square bowl. Yeah, this one was really confusing to do as well because like the cauliflower one, I could barely see what I drew because in the picture the vegetables are kind of all over the place. So I didn't draw it exactly. I just kind of drew it as like anywhere I wanted to. I just made sure there were mushrooms and carrots and I guess broccoli as well. I just traced over the vegetables that I could still see when I cleaned the lines here. This one wasn't my favorite to do. I don't know, I didn't really enjoy tracing the square bowl. I mean, it looks okay, but it's not the best. I didn't really enjoy chasing tracing the square bowl. Maybe I should have just made it a plate and added vegetables or something. Okay, so this is plate number 15. We are almost done. So with this one, I went over the yellow plate itself with markers again because the watercolor got messed up because I used my hand to spread the purple watercolor from what I will guess is grapes. That's what I would guess. Yeah, but I kept doing that a lot. So now we have made it to the last plate on the picture. Finally, the big centerpiece, the big circle bowl plate, the biggest plate, the centerpiece on the drawing. Finally. So this one is the centerpiece basically. So I wanted to make sure it was really good. I traced around the bowl itself. My hands were shaking, yes, but I actually liked how it turned out. Both because there's a smaller bowl inside this one as well. So for both this one and the smaller one inside, I tried to add shadows and just extra color. Like it almost looks like both of the bowls, when I'm done, it almost looks like both of the bowls have three different shades of brown, but I like it. At the end, it really looks really good and not fancy. I want to say fancy, but I like how almost maybe realistic it looked. It has that many colors and shadows because of my shaky hands. Of course, because I made some mistakes while I was tracing it, but yeah, I ended up doing that in the end. And I can kind of guess
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
some of the foods on this plate. I would say I definitely know eggs. Okay. Eggs, maybe carrots, some greens here and there, broccoli. I know what those white ones are with the holes inside. With those holes inside. I'm not sure exactly what the name is, but I think I know what that is. Of course I know the mushrooms as well. So yeah, I can guess majority of what is actually in this big great ensemble of food. So I can kind of guess what's there. But yeah, for each of them, I just used the picture as a reference for every single food item. And I just, of course, use their respective colors. And you would see in the picture that I showed earlier, or I may just put it on the screen again. If you look closely, there's kind of steam coming out of the bowl. But I wasn't going to risk doing that at all. I don't even know where to start from. Maybe I could use white color pencils, maybe look a bit, maybe fade it out around the top area. But I wasn't going to risk it, yeah. I wasn't sure how to do that. But yeah, at the end of the day, this centerpiece actually looks really good. After adding extra shadows with the watercolor, I thought it wasn't enough because it still looks like the plates were rather flat on the drawing on the base on the table. So I decided to use the black color pencil to maybe enhance the shadows or something. And then you wouldn't believe it. the paper started tearing. It started ripping. I don't know. Maybe the watercolor was coming off, the watercolor was reacting. I should handle watercolor, so I don't think the watercolor was coming off. I'm really not sure. Maybe it was. I'm really not sure what the problem was, but that started happening. But I kept going because I had already started, of course. So I kept going. I used the white gel pens on majority of the foods on some of the bowls, and when I added it, it just started to bring everything to life. Everything started looking more 3D and not as flat as it was before. So yeah, the white gel pens started helping. Right, so I'm almost done with the drawing. It means the video is about to end. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming back again. If you came back again, thank you for coming back again. If you are new here, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching till the end. I hope you like it. I actually really like it. I like how it turned out. It's really good. It turned out really good to me, and I hope you liked it as well. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully, I will see you in my next video. Thank you. Bye.